What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. And we're here this week once again for the Eldritch Moon story. You can see from the title down below, but we are here to talk about Moon-Innistrad's Last Hope. And that is both the name of the story that we're here to talk about, but also the lead character of the story who we are here to talk about in Liliana Vess. We
Yay!
Are right back to it with Liliana. It was awesome to see her back. We also got to see, answering my question from last week, I think both of our questions, to be honest, from last week, or from weeks past, was, where's Olivia?
Yeah.
So we got to see Olivia again. Why was she mobilized?
And I called it.
What's that? Called that we would see her again? Yeah. And then we saw Soren again, which, to be honest, we had heard about him last week just because of the fact that he kind of floated away after Jason Tamio saw him kill Avacyn, and that was the last we heard of him for now.
Right.
And I really wasn't expecting to see him again this soon. I expected him to just kind of be off doing whatever, and we would eventually find out what he was doing.
No,
but
it would make sense for him to be with Olivia.
Right. Well, and again, it helped us because we found out what their plans were and what they were doing now, and they got to confront Liliana, which it was funny because Olivia was being a little coy, and I thought it was interesting to have so many egotistical people, or people mightier than thou people, all in the same situation and all kind of vying for control over one another in that moment of Liliana and Soren and Olivia. Do you disagree? I don't know what that look on your face means.
Alright. I'd like to see where you're going with this.
Okay. Well, just in general, being able, like, seeing the three of them, and I think that they're all such powerful people, and or they all see themselves as such powerful people, and such people with nothing to lose, with no equal, if you will,
Okay.
and then now they're coming up against each other and they're in conflict, right? Olivia was kind of throwing subtle jabs at Liliana of like, well, somebody released, Avacyn from the Hell Vault, and we weren't happy when that happened, but now she's dead. And, when whoever it was released Avacyn from the Hell Vault, they released Nahiri as well, whoever that was. And at first, Liliana was responding by kind of not focusing on it and not responding to it and saying, like, she was keeping an appropriate smile or an appropriate demeanor. And then she walked into a room with a guy with his back to them, and it turns out it was Soren. And then she's now got... she then was confronted by Olivia. And it was like, well, we know it was you. We were just being coy. That kind of thing. So...
Okay. I kind of disagree.
Okay.
That whole...
Go ahead, please.
Bit.
Yeah.
Because to me it was just... Liliana is at Olivia's house. She knows it's not the safest and best environment to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Olivia's house.
Fair.
So she's not just going to give out more information than she needs to.
Okay.
And I think she started to realize that Olivia knew before she actually entered the room with Olivia. And then when she did and saw Soren, she knew without having to be told that they knew.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's fair. And still...
But the thing is, she was still kind of happy about it because she didn't realize the whole Nahiri thing. Yes,
that's true, right, because she didn't know that Nahiri was released. She didn't even know Avacyn was dead, which you were very surprised to hear. I guess from me reading it, it kind of led me in that direction, but yeah, the kind of the reveal of like Avacyn's dead and Liliana's like, she is? Like she kind of had no idea.
She was still very laser focused on her own situation, which was, I don't want Jace to be dead. And I killed the guy I wanted to kill. Nothing else matters.
Well, she killed Gristlebrand, and she said in this one, the beginning of this story was very much her attempting to access the powers of the Chain Veil without it hurting her in the process, and she was doing a kind of a Dr. Frankenstein situation with the things hooked up to the dangly parts of the chain veil, and that, you know, hopefully the electricity from the storm would like cause the feedback to come out instead of go in against her. So and that was with Garrett that she was working with, and also the guy, I forget his name, but the guy who she got from Olivia, which is why she then went to Olivia's house, was to return him, even though he was dead, because he was kind of eviscerated by the warped Emrakul werewolves, which was kind of cool. And the fact that, what was the line that you really enjoyed, where they said that the jacket, Garrett's jacket, was being used on the Geist mage to try to keep his insides in after Liliana resurrected him after he died.
Yeah, that line, just the way it was worded, was pretty awesome.
It was really funny.
It wasn't that, but the way it was worded in the story was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was paraphrasing. But yeah, and Liliana brought him back, and first of all, there were a lot of... It was surprisingly comedic, I think, this story, for kind of how crazy it's getting. And it makes me happy, because last week's story was super serious. You know, and not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I think that it was very important that last week's story was super serious. This week was also relatively serious, but it peppered in some jokes here and there.
Yeah. It was definitely funny.
Yeah. The fact that Liliana, throughout the entire story, whenever she referred to Jace, do you remember what she called him?
Yeah.
Cloak Boy. Throughout the whole thing, Cloak Boy. And she was
funny.
And she was like internally insulting him. You know, like every time she thought about him, kind of in her own mind, she was like putting him down.
No, she wasn't insulting him. She was insulting herself.
Well, because she cared about him.
She was making fun of herself for caring.
Right. And then, yet, at the end, even out loud at one point, when she found out what was happening, and she saw the storm kind of coalescing in that one area of Nephalia, which we all know is where Emrakul's coming out, it was cool to see, like, the fact that she said, but Jace is... I mean, everyone is over there. Like, everyone's going to get...
And I just looked up at Joe and said, I told ya.
Because for those of you who have not been watching this series from the beginning, which we, of course, encourage you to do, both because it helps us out, but also because then you get the running themes, Amy's theory is...
Exes.
They're exes. Jace and Liliana are exes. Although I will say, today, the day that this story was released, was also the day that Gisa and Geralf's card was spoiled, which is fantastic. We called that, or we said that we believed that was going to happen. I don't want to say, we predicted it. We said a while ago when we reviewed Gisa and Geralf's story that we suspected that they would be a card in this set since they weren't in the last one. And that was actually when we were all in it.
Honestly, I had hoped that they would be separate cards, but...
As had I. Genuinely, as had I. Although, to a degree, it makes sense. And I will say, I've been here and there, not consistently, but here and there I've been watching the Community Super League that Magic's been doing on their Twitch channel, and then they put it on their YouTube channel afterwards. And I loved when they did the Iron Root Chef episode where they were able to brew up story-based decks. And I think that Gisa and Geralf is a really good card to be accompanied with Pia and Kira Nalar, so you can now have mom and dad and brother and sister. So I thought that was interesting that they did it that way. The card's okay, it doesn't seem absolutely incredible, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting at least one because it looks awesome, and the flavor text, I don't remember the exact wording of the flavor text offhand, but the flavor text itself really embodied what the story had already done for us, which was the sibling rivalry between them, but also the fact that they love each other. That they care, I should say. And that was awesome, because in the last story, when it was the two of them, they weren't really getting along by the end of it. You know, it was like he was calling her naive, she was telling him that she was more powerful than him, which seemingly was true, you know.
Which, I mean, at the same... I don't know. I guess that's the thing that makes it good that they were one card.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of remind us, hey, yeah, they were fighting, but they're siblings, and that's what siblings do. They really love each other, and they're going to back each other up.
Well, and again, if you want predictions, we had talked about in that last story, which I'm sure I linked at the top over here somewhere. You can go check that out. But what we talked about when that story came up was the fact that Gisa talked a lot about Liliana.
Yeah.
And Gisa is a necromancer. And...
Oh, you mean Nahiri? No?
No. Gisa.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So Gisa was the other necromancer, and she worked with Nahiri and brought up all these zombies which were patrolling the Nephalia Drown Yard to attempt to protect all of the cryptoliths that Nahiri was making to try to call for Emrakul. And Liliana now is going towards that area, as we find out at the end of this story. She's going towards that area with a bunch of zombies. And, you know, when she gets there, is she going to find a bunch of Gisa's zombies? Are they all dead because of Emrakul? How is that going to work? But in the art for Gisa and Geralf, which I appreciated, you see Gisa and Geralf standing there. Gisa's holding a shovel, and Geralf's got a pitchfork, and they're holding it against people / werewolves / whatever who have been transformed into Eldrazi. Which means that at this point, whether Gisa likes her or not, she and Liliana are fighting the same enemy.
Right.
They're fighting the Eldrazi. The other thing that I liked about this story in general... So, I'm sorry. So, I guess the point I was trying to make was that I'm hoping to see the two of them come together. I'm hoping to see the two of them fight together. But I'm also then hoping to see the two of them kind of trading barbs back and forth while fighting. I think that would be really entertaining.
See, I don't care as much about the interaction with Liliana and Gisa as much as I want to see the love triangle with Liliana, Jace, and Geralf. I think that would be cool.
Okay.
And as Geralf and Gisa are one card, I'm not sure that I see that happening.
Well, I also think that it's interesting because in Oath of the Gatewatch, you could argue that there was tension between Chandra and Jace or Nissa and Jace, just because they came to understand each other and they worked together, and that's very good to know someone like that. And so there was that kind of a relationship there, but as you said, there was also blatantly a relationship between Jace and Liliana, and they talked about that. And so will that come into play? Because now Jace is going and bringing the Gatewatch here. So, you know, is there going to be kind of that melding of two worlds where, you know, we can understand this as human beings, where if you have one group of friends and one or more of them mixes with another group of friends, it can sometimes be awkward because you may act slightly differently with one person or another, or you may portray yourself slightly differently. So we'll see if that comes into play, how that comes into play. I think they may just be a little bit too preoccupied to have that happen, just because they're going to be a little bit busy.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. So, but regardless, I've seen them do a lot of things. Plus, somehow, at the end of this story, we have to get to Kaladesh. Now, yes. Whether maybe none of these planeswalkers will be there. I know Saheeli Rai, I believe is her name. I got it wrong the last time, but I believe it's Saheeli Rai is the new planeswalker there. Will she be, just one of many new planeswalkers and we won't see any of the originals? Maybe. Who knows? But I know from Oath of the Gatewatch leading into this one, it was kind of Jace getting himself over there, over to Innistrad from Zendikar, and that's what started us into Shadows over Innistrad. So maybe Chandra goes back to her homeworld. Who knows? But regardless, that's kind of getting us off track. I apologize. But I liked a lot the way that this story ended, because the way that this story ended was very much the trailer. It was Liliana kind of walking around, lifting her hands up in the air, and having, zombies after zombies just coming out of the grave and then just marching with her. And I thought...
I felt like the end was a little cliffhanger-y. Like a little anticlimactic.
Well...
Because she was like, well, I guess I'm the last hope. And it's like, okay, but... Like, it'd be cooler if someone else was saying that to her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'd be a lot cooler if Jace was looking at her and saying, Liliana, you're our last hope, you know, or whatever. Last hope or best
It's
hope?
last hope. Last hope.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's also... It hasn't been confirmed as of the time of this recording, but that is the belief as to what the name of Liliana's card will be. Liliana the Last Hope. It was like leaked, but you can't necessarily believe it, but it sounds realistic, and especially because of the fact that...
It's the dialogue in the
the story, plus the story's title is Innistrad's Last Hope, so it seems to be the case. And in fact, they revealed a new card in here. It was a rare, and it was the Vampire Mage. That's fine. It was the Vampire Mage that they revealed in this story. They spoiled that card. I believe it was a rare, and it was a gold card, and black and red. And that's how they spoiled that card. At the end of the story ended with her saying, you know, it looks like, and then some dialogue of what she's doing, I'm this world's, and then more dialogue of what she was doing, last hope. And with all of this, you know, these hand motions, she's bringing up more and more zombies. And that's how the story ends, with her saying, I'm this world's last hope. If the card was Liliana Last Hope, how do you not spoil the card immediately after her saying that? I think that was a missed opportunity. Now, I can say we did watch the Access Magic story, where at the end they specifically teased for next week's Access Magic Episode 3, where they will be quote-unquote talking all things Liliana. So presumably that is when they will be spoiling her card.
Yeah.
But why? Why not do it right here?
Because it'll get people to watch the Access video.
I don't think you need to get people to watch the Access video. Everybody's going to watch it anyway, because this past week was great. The week before was great. Like, you know.
Yeah, but I think at that point, you're going to get viewers who just want to see that and didn't see 1 and 2.
Fair enough. I guess that's possible. And again, there's that toss-up between, you know, how many people actually read the story, how many people actually seek it out, versus how many people just look for other YouTubers who are just going to put up a video showing the picture of the new card and talking about it and giving their opinions about it, and then they don't really care. What I've noticed a lot of times, and this is not me necessarily bad-mouthing anyone, but when I watch a YouTube video where they're talking about spoiled cards, where were they spoiled? Tell me where you saw this. Tell me where you found this.
How accurate is your source?
Well, not even that, but I want to be able to go out and find it. And again, this is not because I want to put it up on our channel. That's not really what we do. You know, we'll talk about spoilers standing here,
right,
but I'm not going to, like, while I'm talking about it, have a picture of the card pop up on the screen. I don't need it. You guys can look it up on your own. You're on the internet watching it. So, but
Google is a thing.
Right. But I, as a player, like, I can understand Mythic Spoiler or Ungatherer, like, you can find these cards, but there are particular people who have been gifted the ability to spoil cards. And I want to know where these come from. Like, there were 2 cards that Marshall Sutcliffe got to spoil in an article of his. I read his article, which was fantastic, and I saw those 2 cards. And it was great seeing Marshall's analysis. There's a reason why, for example, Loading Ready Run gets their own preview card. They get their own preview card because they are able to put out a video previewing that card that is funny.
Yeah.
And you need that every once in a while, because a lot of other times people will get a card to spoil, and there's nothing wrong with either way of doing it, but a lot of other people will get a card to spoil, and they will say, this card's sick, or this card's amazing, and these are my belief of their constructed playability and their limited playability, and Loading Ready Run comes on, and they're, you know, with Horribly Awry, Graham is there spitting sand out of his mouth all the time.
Right.
Like, that's hilarious, and it's definitely something that's needed. You know, I know that Evan Irwin as well, when he does his...
Sort of an untapped market a little bit.
Absolutely. But again, that's why they do it. That's why they have them doing the Friday nights episodes. That's why they have them with their preview card.
And that's why it's a popular channel, because they have that unique likability.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, they do the fun streams of the wacky drafts that they do. Like, they don't need to do the draft to win, although, of course, they try, because money is a thing, but at the same time they'll do the hat draft where they have to pick cards that have hats in them, or something like that. It's hysterical, right? Like, and yet at the same time you'll see them kind of discussing the playability of the cards that they're picking, even though they're constrained to whether the card has a hat on it or not.
Right.
And then they argue about what is a hat. So, are the tentacles a hat? Is Kiora's headpiece a hat? So, that kind of thing. Those guys are funny. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is I believe, despite my critique of my thought of whether or not they should have spoiled Liliana from this story, one of the things that I appreciate greatly is Wizards' ability to properly hype a set. I think that they do spoiler season very well. I think that they appropriately spoil the appropriate cards at the appropriate time. This set needed to start with Emrakul being spoiled. If it was just Liliana first, and it was just a picture of her, like it was her card, and that was the first thing that was spoiled, and it was a picture of her with zombies behind her, and that's all you saw, that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
You knew Liliana was going to be in this set, because she was on the world, she's all over the promo art, so how would she not be a card? But spoiling that card first does nothing for you story-wise.
Everyone who knows the name Liliana knows that she's a necromancer.
Yes.
So there's no need to have, here's Liliana with a bunch of zombies.
Yep.
Okay, well, tell us, the thing we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they're doing a great job, and it's interesting because, we run a YouTube channel, so you would think that we would be of the opinion that, leaks are cool. It's cool to see leaked cards and leaked information early so that we can talk about it early. No.
Depends.
because when information gets leaked like that, you find out information before you're supposed to know it.
Right.
And Wizards is very good, otherwise we wouldn't be standing here doing this, is very good at telling a story. They turn their preview season or their spoiler season into its own narrative, and they do it so well.
Right. Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
Hashtag Vorthos Pride. I mean, 100%. We like to show it off. They're doing a great job helping us show it off and helping us be happy to show it off. I also wanted to say that I think
and giving us a reason to, because, without the stories or without, as you say, the appropriate timeliness of the whole thing, then there's really no point.
Well, right. They would then they would just be cards, which, to be fair, there are some...
Vorthos players probably wouldn't exist.
Correct. Because there are some people out there who couldn't give a damn about the stories. And that's totally fine, because, as we've talked about many times in these videos, Magic is for everyone in their own different way. I will not stand here and say that I think that a player who doesn't care about the story at all is a bad person or a bad player or doesn't deserve to be a player in the game.
No.
Because it doesn't matter, right? However they want to consume this form of entertainment, they have every right to do that. I enjoy the stories, I enjoy the implications, and I enjoy... there's flavor text on these cards for a reason.
Right.
If there was no flavor text, then, it gives it that little extra, where even if you've never read a story before in your life, there's got to be one piece of flavor text where you look at it and you're like, that's funny.
Right.
Or that's interesting. Or
okay, now I feel like I understand the character on this card better.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, because there are certain cards that don't need flavor text. Startled Awake from the last set didn't need flavor text because it told its own story start to finish. Incredible. And it had flavor text on it. It didn't need it. It added more to it.
It's lovely.
Yeah. It added more to it, but it didn't need it. But there are certain cards that do, like Gisa and Geralf. The flavor text on that card is great.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
And if you don't know them, you just be like, okay, they're Gisa and Geralf. You read that flavor text and you're like, oh, so they're siblings, and there's a little bit of
And they're funny.
Yes. Yes, and there's a little bit of a rivalry there.
Right.
But at the same time, if you just look at the picture, they're like badass siblings, holding weapons
or just
up.
People.
Badass people. You're right. You're right. You wouldn't know they're siblings. Yeah.
Okay.
Just holding weapons against Eldrazi, which
they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they happened to be together.
Yeah.
And this dude's just behind this chick. And
yeah.
They're just fighting off these things.
Yeah.
no, like, there's a lot more to them than that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's cool that we get to learn what that is.
Yeah. And obviously, like, we're in spoiler season. That's why we're talking so much about spoilers and stuff like that. The thing about this story, it was another short one. It was another good one.
It was short.
Although...
It was noticeably shorter than a lot of these other ones.
Yes. And it kind of... I agree with what you said in that it left me wanting more, but I think it left me wanting more, and this may have been the point you were trying to bring up, and if so, correct me,
okay.
But it left me wanting more in the way that I thought that there wasn't enough.
Yes.
Is that what you were saying before as well?
Right.
Okay.
I felt that it lacked an end.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that it lacked an end. What I will say, though, is at the end of this story, they do not know that Emrakul is here. They don't know specifically that it's Emrakul. They don't talk about, like,
right.
the storm is there and it's coalescing, and it's very similar to how Oath of the Gatewatch started, in my opinion, because the way that the Oath of the Gatewatch story started was, you know, the Chandra story was she shows up, she sees Ob Nixilis, she, like, kind of deals with Ob Nixilis, and then her story ends with Kozilek jumps out of the ground. And it's like, oh my god, Kozilek. And then you go to the next story, and Kozilek isn't out of the ground yet at the beginning of the next story.
Yeah.
Because now you have to see Kozilek coming out of the ground
stories overlap.
from a different perspective. And so that's exactly what happened here. We already know Emrakul rose.
Right.
There was literally a story called Emrakul Rises. In this story, following that story, you don't know that Emrakul has risen yet.
You have to, rewind a little bit first.
Yeah, because you need to see what Olivia and Soren and Liliana and, you know, what all of them were doing.
Or like in a TV show where you go, meanwhile,
yeah.
you know?
And I wouldn't be surprised if next week the same thing happens, where we go to someone else. Now, last week they did a really good job of showing us snippets of different groups of people. So, you know, we already know where Jace and Tamio were when Emrakul came up. We already know where Bruna and Gisela were or Brizella now, which is awesome, amazing, when Emrakul came up. So maybe there isn't anyone left, maybe Arlen Cord, but maybe there isn't anyone left whose story we need to hear prior to Emrakul rising and kind of what they feel from that or how they choose to deal with that. But yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do that again next week, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't either. I don't think they need to, but they could. They could kind of span that out over the next couple weeks.
I'm glad to see the Gisa and Geralf card. I'd like another story about
100%.
them.
100%. I'd be really disappointed if they didn't, because they've built up to it, especially now that there's a card for it as well. They've built up to it. If they don't, I think they'd be doing us a disservice.
Right. And I'm saying that in the respect, kind of go back to what you were saying, kind of see the beginnings of that. Like, I don't necessarily want just to see Gisa and Geralf fighting the Eldrazi. Like, I want it to rewind a little bit on them as well, so that I can kind of see the I don't know, kind of like the Olivia mobilized for war. Like, I want to see them mobilized for war.
Well, and not only that, but don't forget, at least at the end of the last time we saw them, at the end of their story, the last time we heard from them, they were not together.
Right.
In the card, they're together.
Yeah, so I want to fill in that gap.
Yeah, because if the next story begins and they're like talking to each other, it's like you missed a spot, you know. And like now, don't get me wrong, if the next story starts with the two of them talking to each other, and then as they've done before, they go into a flashback of some kind, fine, totally fine, because that's a storytelling method, and I get that. But yeah, I would want to know how they ended up together, you know, holding a shovel and a pitchfork, standing against mutated Eldrazi people. So, I think my favorite part of this story, personally, was the realization that came out of it when Soren is talking to... When Olivia and Soren take Liliana and Garrett out of the tower and are walking her kind of outside. And they're walking towards the Emrakul thing. You know, the Nephalia, basically. But the Emrakul situation that hasn't quite happened yet. And Liliana is realizing what's happening.
Right.
And Soren and kind of is questioning it. And she's like, what's going on? And Soren says, yeah, we can't save this world. This world is gone. Which is interesting because he's mad at Liliana for having broken the Hell Vault.
Right.
Since, as he said last week, or 2 weeks ago, the Hell Vault was half of his protection for Innistrad.
Right.
And then
and
that
the
was
other
broken,
half is dead now.
and he did that.
Right.
He had to do that because of Nahiri. But all of this, in Soren's mind, traces back to Liliana. Because she selfishly broke the Hell Vault to kill Griselbrand. And that was all she... And she even says in this story, I didn't care about anything else that was
Right.
released in there. I needed to kill Griselbrand. Griselbrand needed to come out, and then I killed him. And I didn't care that Nahiri got released. I didn't care that she then brought Emrakul to this world and is destroying this world and warping all these people. And
Yeah, I think Soren's just a little bit, I think he's just a little bit mad at Liliana for maybe he just feels that she should have come to him and said, okay, I really want to kill this Griselbrand dude. So I'm going to break your Hell Vault and kill him. That sound cool?
Yeah, and that's...
So at least, he could be like, no, this is what we should do instead.
Well,
Or this is how we can try to kill him without freeing everything else that's in there. Or let's, let's agree then that if I help you kill Griselbrand, you'll help me kill the rest of them, or something.
But I don't think that Soren would care.
I'm not saying he would have.
He would. I think he would have just looked at Liliana because in fact
he probably would have put her in the Hell Vault too.
Right. Well, and in fact, he says to her when he got angry at her in this story, he said, "I told you when you came here as a pup," and emphasized the word pup, meaning you're beneath me. Remember that you're beneath me, and remember what I told you when I showed you that you were beneath me. Right. That this is my world.
Which I'm guessing is the reason why she didn't do that, because you can't reason with somebody who thinks they're that much better than you.
Yeah. Now
all you can do is go behind their back and do what you want to do.
Now speaking of people that we need to see coming up, or not need to, but that we're probably going to see coming up, we've got Gisa and Geralf. We've probably got more Olivia because, as I was saying, my favorite part of the story was the fact that Soren kind of wrote off his world and basically said, this world is done, but Olivia and I are taking our army of vampire soldiers and we're going to fight Nahiri. Which is, I think, a little bit of overkill, but we'll see how strong Nahiri is because Soren and Olivia and an army of vampires are going to face Nahiri. Just Nahiri. Liliana and her army of zombies are going to face Emrakul and presumably now an army of Eldrazi.
Right.
And seemingly, according to what they said, never shall the two meet in doing so. Soren has, I believe, no intention of going anywhere near Emrakul or the Eldrazi because he's saying, Nahiri's the problem, we kill Nahiri, and then I would assume...
Well, there's a huge shift in that Soren is relinquishing his love for Innistrad and love for saving Innistrad over to Liliana. He is basically saying, okay, we can't save this anymore. Even though I've spent centuries, or however the heck long it was, trying to protect this plane, 500 years or what?
5,000.
5,000 years.
Yeah.
I've spent that many years trying to protect this plane, and now with this one thing going wrong, well, a lot of things going wrong, let's be real. But now I can't save it. So now Liliana's sort of taking up that mantle that she's the only one who's going to do anything to actually try and save Innistrad.
But I don't...
They're trying to kill Nahiri because they don't want her to move on to the next plane and screw that one up as well, I think.
Well, I think they also just want revenge. You don't come and destroy my plane without me dealing with you because of it.
Right, but they're not doing anything to avenge the plane.
Correct. Well, I mean, if they kill Nahiri, no, but if they kill Nahiri, they avenge the plane.
No, they don't, because they're still just letting the plane go to shit.
That's what avenge. That's what avenge means.
Well, but
it's after the fact.
Right, but they're just deciding that it's after the fact.
Well, because
instead of doing something about it, which is what Liliana is doing.
Right, but would you expect anything less from Soren?
At this point, no. At this point, this point, Soren, there's not a damn redeeming quality about that man. Not one. If you think he has some, leave them in the comments.
It's true.
Please.
Let us know.
I'd like to know what they are.
He's super powerful. I can give him that. I mean,
I don't give a shit.
He was able to kill
he doesn't use it for anything that's worth a damn.
Yeah. Anyway, that's this story. I loved the fact that it was like, I'm Soren, I'm going to take Olivia here and this army of vampires and go fight just Nahiri, and this plane's done. And Liliana's like, no, it's not.
It's just another way for him to cop out.
Maybe.
And still think that he's better than everyone else.
Maybe. But
I don't know how he's lying to himself at this point.
Well,
about being better than everyone else when all he does is run away from an issue.
And we will now see, because Liliana talked about it a lot in this story, we will now see the fact that Liliana is kind of going to be secretly super happy when she sees Jace again. Because first of all, as far as she knows, and she said it here, Jace is crazy still.
Yeah. And
now that she will hopefully see that he is not crazy, now we will find out what she thinks about that.
Right.
And she said she doesn't want Jace to need her, but she needs someone to need her.
No, she doesn't need him, but she needs somebody to need her.
Right, and he is who she's turning to.
Right.
And so, again, Jace is coming back with the Gatewatch. You know, they're in the trailer as well, but it looks like the Gatewatch are getting their butts kicked. Liliana's the one standing up. And Liliana's going up against Emrakul with a horde of zombies behind her, whereas the Gatewatch are fighting the individual Emrakul Eldrazi.
Right, and that whole line is just a line of shit, because, I mean, basically, the plane needs her.
Correct.
So she doesn't need Jace to need her. She just is in love with Jace.
And I think, you know what, we'll talk about this more in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But I think that it's very interesting. So I'll just plant this seed and you guys can think about it and we'll think about it as well. But I think that it's very interesting that they've come to this land of Innistrad where we have already been. The last time we were here, we met Bruna, we met Gisela, we met Sigarda, we met Avacyn. And all of these people whom we have met, we met Thalia. Thalia is coming back in this set as well. We met Thalia. And now Bruna and Gisela are Brizella. And in the Access Magic story this week, they specifically said Innistrad will never be the same.
Yeah.
So does that mean that these angels are definitively gone forever? Is that it? Have they taken these main characters and just poofed them out of existence?
Well, not just main characters, but I mean, we talked so much about Avacyn being the protector of the plane, but in reality, it was all of the angels. So.
And all of which, except for seemingly Sigarda, have now gone crazy.
Right.
And
that was a while back.
Right.
Basically, when we had that story. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no way to know how close she is at this point to being just as crazy as the rest of them.
Except for thankfully, because we have seen Brizella, the flavor text from Brizella so far can tell us, where it says, when seeing what has come of her sisters, Sigarda could only weep.
Right.
So she at least has enough to mourn the loss of her sisters despite their insanity first. So, like I said, we'll plant that seed. We'll talk about that more in the weeks to come because that was not what this story was about.
Right.
This story was about Liliana. We got her. We saw her. We were left wanting more, not necessarily in a good way, because I felt like, and Amy felt like there should have been a little bit more. It was a shorter story, but you know what? As we've been frequently saying with these stories, we'll see where it leads.
Right.
And I'm more than willing to be proven wrong. So, but anyway, I will say for ourselves, this video is actually coming out on Monday, so the Access Magic story might be out, and so Liliana might already be spoiled. Go check it out on Wizard's page, see if it's up there already. we released our last story early because the story was released early with Emrakul Rises, and we put out in the Monday slot, which is when this is coming out. Last week we put out a little announcement video, which I'll again try to link up top here. Give that a chance. Give that a look if you have a chance. It's like 9-10 minutes long. Just talking about our channel and updates on it. I don't want to inundate this video with it. Plus, we're already going pretty long. So, but I do want to say, do you have anything else? I think we're all set, right?
Yeah, I think I'm set.
I liked the story a lot. I think it worked really well. Again, left me wanting more, which we'll have to see how that goes. But, guys, from the Geek for All YouTube channel, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.